I just wanted to go over something really quick. DeMarcus Cousins at one point was arguably, or for sure, the best center in the league in his last closing years in Sacramento. We're talking about a guy that single-handedly was carrying Sacramento to some form of relevance, averaging damn near 28 points per game his last season in San Antonio, 10 rebounds, and shooting an efficient 49% from the field, 36% from the fucking three, and then he was averaging 5 assists a game. That's MVP numbers for a 6'11" center in one of the worst franchises in the league. For him to single-handedly be like, "Yo, I'm not gonna let us go out like this."
And he was arguably the best big man at the league at the time.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like DeMarcus had a certain feel to him, if you will. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know you're not going to feel the same way about this, but I felt that as he was getting better in Sacramento, he was becoming a very dominant force down low. And in my opinion, I might get bashed for this, I felt he was one of the most dominant players I've ever seen outside of Shaq. Like he got down in the post whenever he wanted. I know it's not to the level of Shaq, but no one's ever going to be like Shaq. So what I'm saying is he's the closest thing we've had to dominance since Shaquille O'Neal was in the league in his prime because of the things he was doing. And he was more athletic than Shaq. He was able to dribble. He was able to pull up from deep. He was able to pass the ball efficiently and still be a factor on the defensive side of the ball. We're talking smash mouth, technical foul, getting in your face, giddy up, you know what I'm saying, ready to fight. And he was just, whenever the ball was in the post, he did not back down from a soul. There were very few, if not many people that can actually play him on the block and get a stop. I'm just saying when I used to see DeMarcus highlights in Sacramento, I got a Shaq feel behind it, like a little like, damn, that was kind of like he bullied the shit out of him or he just fucking posterized that man. Like it was just, I got that urge that he was just on a tear and he was just feeling it to the point where he could not be stopped. And we're literally sitting here talking about one of the best centers in the league at the time back then to now being on what seems to be a potential, a career last stop for him in LA. If he doesn't get this 10-day contract, or should I say, if he doesn't, get past this 10-day contract, there may not be any more Boogie. There may be no more DeMarcus Cousins. And it's kind of scary because when he came back from the ACL and he did his thing in New Orleans, you know what I mean? He was playing phenomenal. And I mean, like he was doing really good. And then that run in Golden State when he had tore his quad, when he came back from that, he was averaging 16 points a game. So, I mean, he was never going to be the same Boogie that he was because of the injuries, but overcoming all of those things, it was absolutely insane. And I'm reading my notes. I actually have it backwards. He tore his Achilles in New Orleans, and then he tore his quad, and then he tore his ACL. I had it backwards. So, nevertheless, he's been on a number of teams since then. He obviously got traded to New Orleans. Then he left New Orleans and signed with the Warriors to go on their run. We all know, again, he got hurt over there. And then he went to LA, and then he didn't even get to play a single game in LA because he tore his ACL. And now he signed with Houston this past offseason. And then they cut him. And now he's on the Clippers. So, Kyle, I mean, like, we're talking about one of the more exciting players to watch relatively like a couple of years back to now kind of falling down to the bottom of the totem pole, basically playing for the last contract of his life potentially. What are your thoughts on Boogie Cousins' journey, man? I mean, I got to give him credit. He's overcome a lot of things that most men would have given up by now. But do you think it's time for him to hang it up?
Not yet. The reason why is that he's only 30. If he was like 34, 35, kind of the age of like where LaMarcus Aldridge is right now, I would say that he should start contemplating retirement. But he's only 30 years old, so I would still kind of give him maybe a couple of years before I would just go to the point where he should just retire if this 10-day contract with the Clippers doesn't work out. But here's what I will say about Boogie is that Boogie had a fantastic start to his career in Sacramento. The only problem is that he played in Sacramento. You can even look to like De'Aaron Fox right now. De'Aaron Fox is having a great year, but nobody really cares because he's playing on Sacramento, and Sacramento's going nowhere. Sacramento, even when Boogie was there, he played great, but the team pretty much never made any sort of positive impact or even made a deep run into the playoffs. I don't even believe they even made the playoffs while Boogie was on the Kings while he was there. But with that said, though, it did set him up for a chance to at least revitalize his career when he went to the Pelicans, but suffered a massive injury while he was there. And the one thing that I've noticed about Boogie, especially with just these litany of injuries that he sustained over the last 3 to 4 years, is that he can't jump anymore. And as a big man, look, even if you can't score like you used to, you could at least go out there and help your team out just to get some rebounds. But the thing is, he just doesn't have that. He doesn't have the lift anymore.
That explosiveness.
It's gone. And it makes sense. When you tear your Achilles, coming back from that is extremely difficult. There are very few players that can come back from that and reach that level that they did prior to the injury. But not only that, he tears his quad. He tears his ACL. I mean, he's got the Trinity right there when it comes to just debilitating injuries to your leg. At some point, it doesn't matter your ability to come back from these injuries. There's going to be just a complete devaluation of your skill set just because you're not able to generate the same amount of explosiveness, as you said, or just the amount of lift that you used to on your jumps anymore. And it kind of shows when I watched him play in Golden State, even when he had his dunks, you could tell that it almost looked like he was struggling to get up to the hoop. And for somebody in his late 20s at the time when he was playing with Golden State, it showed that he's probably going to be not as impactful as he was when he was on Sacramento.
Aside from that dunk on Kyle Kuzma.
I mean,
that was a poster, boy.
I'll give him that, but it's like I said, he'll have like these little flash moments, and then unfortunately it's followed up by a major injury. And I've said this before. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast before, but I've said it just kind of in general conversation. When you sustain a major injury and you're out for an extended period of time, I've always been of the mindset that it compromises your entire body. And I think with him, I think that was the case because DeMarcus is a big guy. DeMarcus weighs like 270 pounds, 275 pounds.
He's 270, 6'10".
I mean, carrying that weight on a leg that's already compromised, whether it was an ACL, a quad, and an Achilles, that's a lot of weight to be carrying around on a compromised leg. And we'll see what happens when he's with the Clippers. I don't know how effective he's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised that if the Clippers do kind of sign him to the rest of the season. I think the 10-game contract, they'll definitely kind of kick the tires on him just to kind of see how it goes. But I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up signing him for the rest of the year. I think just to have him there for depth, I think is probably a good thing. And I do like his presence on the bench. He does seem to be a guy that can kind of mend some possible flares. Like I remember one in particular when he was playing with Golden State where KD and Draymond got into it, and DeMarcus Cousins was there to kind of keep things a little bit on the how do I say this? He at least tried to at least keep things a little bit cooler on the sideline while KD and Draymond went at it whenever they did. So I think just having that presence there, I think is a positive if the Clippers ended up keeping him for the rest of the year. But I just don't know how viable he's going to be as a player. He's not going to be like what he was in Sacramento. Those days are long gone.
Yeah, big time.
But having a 10-year vet on the bench, even going into the playoffs, because the Clippers are going to be probably a top 3, top 4 seed in the Western Conference going into the playoffs this year. I think they'll be just fine if they have him even as just a depth guy, just to kind of give just the young guns and then maybe Kawhi and Paul George at least just a decent role model on the bench to have. But as far as his play goes, I think it's going to be minimal at best.